Sermons of a Buddhist Abbot. Soyen Shaku, translated by D.T. Suzuki, continues with Buddhist faith. Now let's find out whether faith stems from belief, stems into knowledge. Buddhism is so deep and comprehensive, and we might say even unfathomable, that scholars are sometimes at a loss how and where to begin its measurement. In some respects, it appears to be a chaotic mass of superstitions, while in others it is a systematic and thoroughgoing application of an idealistic, pantheistic theory. The present discourse does not propose, however, to clear up all these difficulties, but only to give a certain clue with which students of Buddhism may be guided in their exploration. Buddhism, then, will be treated here broadly under two headings: faith and discipline. First, of the Buddhist faith, which is summed up in this gatha. The Buddha body fills the world, being immanent universally in all things. It will make itself manifest wherever and whenever conditions are matured, though it never leaves the seat of Bodhi. Generally speaking, faith means trusting in something external to oneself. When religion is defined as a faith, it is considered to imply that there is a being or power which has created this world and presides over it, directing its course and shaping its destiny, and that religion teaches to trust or believe in this being or power, which is thus proved to be greater and wiser than human beings. Therefore, the Christians believe in a God. Well, yes and no. Sometimes it's gods, but because Christianity is not monotheism, who is a personal reality and who is supported to and who is supposed to exist above and outside us poor mortals. And some Buddhists believe in Amitabha Buddha, who resides in Pure Land or Western Paradise, Sukhavati, and for this reason religion has come to be identified with the belief in an external object, whatever this be, particularly by Occidental scholars. But Buddhist faith does not belong in this category, for Buddhism rejects the existence of a personal God, as he is ordinarily understood by some religionists. What then is the faith that keeps Buddhists together? Well, certainly the Buddha rejected the worship of the angels and the light beings and the fire beings and of the spirits and the forces of nature. That part's clear enough. There are a couple passages that kind of indicate whatever, but it's still not. It's still not your Christian type of Godhead. Briefly, Buddhists believe in three fundamental facts which are universally observable about us and which cannot be refuted by any amount of argument. They believe first in the sameness of things. Samatha. By sameness is understood the presence of a unifying principle in all phenomena. However diversified and differentiated may appear those particular existences with which we come in contact in this world of the senses, they universally partake of one nature, of one essence, and it is on one account of this presence of a supra-individual reason that life becomes possible, that existence, this phenomenal world, becomes possible. I just read Surah 55 of the Quran, and one gets into that a little bit, that idea that everything exists and is maintained because of a universal unifying principle. Secondly, Buddhists believe in the difference between things, nanatva, in their manifoldness, in their particularity, in their individuality, for it is an undeniable fact that these things are all separate and distinct, that each has its own individuality, and that each moves according to its own inherent necessity. Thirdly, Buddhists believe in the fact that all things move or work, for there is nothing in this world that is not endowed with the possibility of motion, the power of doing something, the capacity of accomplishing a work, and in exercising this power, everything works upon another, and is at the same time worked upon by another. The universe is a network of all these particular forces mutually acting and mutually being acted upon. This is called the principle of karma. And Buddhists apply it not only to the physical world, but to the moral and spiritual realm. So, yeah, karma wasn't meant to be such a moralistic term. It's what's going on, basically. Cause and effect, and what's going on. That's it. That's all it means. It doesn't mean that you hear people blaming rape victims and stuff like that, oh, it's your karma. It's like, no, never say that to people. Well, it is their karma, because cause and effect, but that doesn't mean, people have blame, even if they're drunk or some, they got arrested on petty crime, so therefore, or whatever the case may be. It's just doesn't have the moralistic sort of connotation. But a lot of traditions put it there. This threefold faith constitutes the cornerstone of Buddhism, which makes it appear somewhat too metaphysical to be a religion of the masses. But the fact is that Buddhism is far from being a system of philosophy. Those who take Buddhists for speculative thinkers will lose sight of the inner life of the religion in which its followers are living. It must never be supposed that Buddhists try to get us entangled in the endless mass of sophistic reasoning. Anything that is to be designated at all as a religion never proposes to argue with us after the fashion of a philosopher, for religion is not to analyze, to demonstrate, or to argue with local thoroughness, but to see facts directly and to believe and live them accordingly. Well, no, but I can understand if Christians taught them, oh, well, religion means we accept, and but I don't think that's the way of Jesus or any of the others, but Paul, certainly. I've said some stuff that Jesus never said about himself, but you trust me. Or all those gurus in India. Well, it's a secret. This guy, yeah, he never said this about himself, but he was really an incarnation of God. It's like, or the natural world and stuff. But trust and then verify. That's an acceptable thing. You find that in the Quran. You find that in what's left of the Avesta. Although you do have issues there, but going off on a tangent. In the Gatha recited in the beginning, the idea of sameness is rather dogmatically expressed. The Buddha body fills the world, and this content of sameness is called the Buddha body. Or in Sanskrit, Buddhakaya. The Buddhakaya, which is often called Dharmakaya, is the reason, life, and norm of all particular existences. When we penetrate through the diversity of all these individual phenomena, we encounter everywhere this indwelling body, and therein find the unity or sameness, samatha, of things. The principle of diversity is declared in the second line of the Gatha, which makes the Buddha body universally immanent in all things. The Buddha body, the essence of existence, though absolutely one in itself, allows itself to be diversified, as the lilies of the field, as the fowls of the air, as the creatures of the water, or as the inhabitants of the woods. For it is in the inherent nature of the Buddha body that it individualizes itself. In the manifoldness of the phenomenal world, it does not stand alone outside particular existences, but abides in them and animates them and makes them move freely. By thus abandoning its absolute transcendentiality, it has subjected itself to certain conditions such as space, time, and causation. Its essence is impotent, but its manifestations are finite and limited. Therefore, the Buddha body has to wait to express itself in this relative world till all the necessary conditions are matured. This creation, so-called, is no more than the manifestation of the self-limiting Buddha body. Well, Buddha is a term that you can't really quite put to a god because it's a secondary term, like Lucifer. Lucifer is a secondary term. Christ is a secondary term. Anything with the al or yah at the end. Many more examples. Sheo Shant and, Suppose here stands a mirror, the mirror of Buddha body. Anything that comes in front of it is reflected therein, and this without any premeditation on the part of the mirror. If there comes a man, he is reflected there. If a woman, she finds herself reflected in it. If it is a beautiful flower now, which presents itself before the mirror, it is immediately and instantly reflected with all its magnificence. It is even so with things unsightly or even repugnant, for the mirror does not refuse its illuminating power to anything high or low, rich or poor, ugly or beautiful, good or evil. Wherever and whenever conditions are ripe, all particular things will be reflected in the supranatural mirror of the Buddha body, without hesitation, without reasoning, without demonstration. This is the way in which the principle of karma works. The fourth line of the Gatha is more or less a continuation of the third and expresses the same sentiment from another point of view. Things are many and are subject to constant transformation as regulated by their karma, but the Buddha body eternally abides in the seat of Bodhi, which is our inmost being. The moon is one and serenely shines in the sky, but she will cast her shadow wherever the conditions are mature. In ever so many different places, do we not see her image wherever there is the least trace of water? It may be filthy, or it may be clean. It may consist only of a few drops, or it may be a vast expanse, such as the ocean, but they all reflect one and the same moon. As best suited to their inherent nature. The shadows are as many as different bodies of water, but we cannot say that one shadow is different from another. However small the moon may appear when there is only a drop of water, she is essentially the same as the one in the boundless sheet of water, where its heavenly serenity inspires awe and reverence. So many, and yet one in all, so diverse, yet essentially the same. We see it reflected everywhere, and yet it is not the Buddha body sitting all alone in the seat of Bodhi. Several questions present themselves here. How can we attain a spiritual insight into the sameness of things and have our minds so transparent as to reflect one eternal truth? How can we understand the principle of sameness and its phenomenal aspect and recognize the diversity of desires, feelings, passions, instincts, motives, etc.? How can we see the Buddha body and its manifold activities and recognize it at once without abstraction and premeditation and elaboration? The most practical way to solve these problems is not through mere intellection. We must first acquire mental tranquility. We must be purified spiritually. We must be freed from all the disturbing passions, prejudices, and superstitions. Buddhism is a religion first and last, and its aim is always practical and spiritual. Philosophers and scientists will endeavor to come to a definite solution of the problems here cited logically, intellectually, metaphysically, analytically, relying on their demonstrative knowledge. But the way that leads us, practical religionists, most effectively to the satisfactory adjustment of the puzzling world riddles which so greatly disturb all deep, serious souls is the practice of meditation called jnana by Buddhists. As to the practical part of Buddhism, our discipline, it will be treated under Buddhist ethics, which follows.